Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Aria Grace's YouTube channel. My name's Tarian PS. I'm an author of gay fiction, but today I'm here to read to you a book by the talented Aria herself, as this is apparently the terms and conditions for my release. I'm having been lured into cooperating into a scheme to deliver free romantic tales read on the cusp from the genre to you. I do hope you'll enjoy this reading. However, don't be fooling yourselves into thinking that I haven't worked out that some of you, maybe even most of you, are likely in on this conspiracy of free readings. You plotted, the lot of you, in order to take full advantage of Aria's love of her fans, thus setting a trap in which I fell into. I did. I fell into the trap. And here I am today with all of you to test the boundaries of my reading corner, as well as readying my revenge. For by reading one of Aria's first ever books, I won't mention any names myself, have been told that authors cringe at the mention of their earlier releases. Insert evil laugh. Insert evil laugh. Fine, moving on without the evil laugh. Screen effects, all joking aside, viewers' discretion need only anticipate possible cat interruptions on my desk, brought to you by the kitten enterprise of Captain Jack Jack of Jagarandaland and his brother Sir Dobby of Sockshire. Otherwise, this reading is safe for public consumption, and content warnings are not necessary. As for the sake of YouTube legal stuff, the story has been censor filtered. That means on occasion while I'm reading, a scene may come over slightly disjointed, or dropped off the side of cliff into Where'd It Go Valley, or just silently bleeped out. Now you know. If you'd like to later read the unfiltered edition, you can find More Than Friends on audiobooks by aria.com or on Amazon. I'll leave links in the comments below. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more free readings here on YouTube. And feel free to leave a comment below if you'd like to request your favorite Aria Grace romance for future readings. So without further ado, let's get cozy and get reading. Today's book is More Than Friends. It's book one of the More Than Friends series written by Aria Grace. I'm Talon PS, and I'm reading for your pleasure today. We hope you enjoy this abridged PG-13 version of the full book. Copyright 2023. Chapter 1. After being in a relationship for the past 4 years, Ryan Edwards didn't know how to be a single adult. He had gotten together with Brooke when they were both seniors in Jefferson High, and after these 3 years of trying to juggle a long-distance relationship, school, and work, it just didn't work out. She wanted him to drive to visit her every weekend, and he couldn't justify the time or gas money to take the trip. He loved her like a sister, but he just wasn't in love with her the way he thought he should be. So when she started fussing about her needs and his lack of motivation to be with her, he didn't argue. He agreed that she deserved better and let her go. 4 weeks later, Ryan was still moping around his apartment waiting for Miss Wright to come knocking on his door, but he was pretty sure that she wasn't going to be delivering pizza or his mail anytime soon. So when his boss invited him to have a beer after work one night, he couldn't think of a decent reason not to. Dude, you need to get out of this funk. You are 21 and single. These are the best years of your life. Go out, sow your oats. You shouldn't be tied down to a girl right now anyways. You should be doing a different girl every night. God knows, when I was your age, Paul said. 5 years. That's how long ago? You're my age. 5 years. That feels like 15. Once you settle down, start talking about rings and babies, everything is different. Allie just moved in and she's already hinting about wedding. You don't know how lucky you are to have choices. You can literally choose any person in this bar and just have one night stands if you want to. Hell, you could choose 5 chicks in this bar if you want to. Ryan wasn't much of a player, but the idea of having choices was appealing. He'd never given much thought to what he really wanted in a girlfriend before. When he was with Brooke, he was content. But if he had to come up with a list of what he was attracted to, there were just a few things that were non-negotiable. Good sense of humor was definitely at the top of the list. He felt like he hadn't laughed in months and really missed it. He had a few friends that could always make him laugh, and he needed that in a partner. An easygoing personality was also pretty high up there. He wanted to be able to have fun, whether he was eating breakfast or watching TV. Brooke was self-centered and cared too much about other people's thoughts of her to ever really relax. She wore 5-inch heels to baseball games, for God's sakes. He would definitely, excuse me, be more picky with his girlfriend. You're right. I should just go up to that table of women and ask if they'd all like to come back to my apartment. I bet they'd totally dig that. Or better yet, I'll just strip and lay across their table and tell them to sample the goods. He knew Paul was trying to encourage him, but he was only on his second beer, so there was no way in hell he was ready to even think about hitting on anyone. Be serious, dude. You can do this. What about those two girls over there in the corner? The blonde has been watching you all night. You should at least buy her a drink. I'll chat up her friend while you feel her up. I mean, out. Very funny. I'm not going to do that. I'm not that desperate. In truth, Ryan was horny as damn and could have probably done just about anyone who was willing to spread their legs for him, but he didn't have the balls to just walk up to a chick and buy her a drink. If she said no, he'd probably die right on the spot of humiliation. Too late. Paul tilted his head in the direction of the girls, and Ryan looked up just as they approached the table. Hey, my friend and I were wondering if you guys are here alone, the redhead asked Ryan, but kept glancing at Paul. We are, but hopefully not for long. Can we buy you ladies a drink? Paul answered. He kicked Ryan in the shin to force him to look up from his beer and at the two women. The blonde smiled at Ryan and waited for him to indicate he was okay with them staying. Yeah, please have a seat. Ryan scooted over in the booth and let the blonde slide in next to him. Her friend was already giggling at Paul and hanging on his arm. I'm Drea, and this is my friend Nicole, she told her hand out to Ryan. She shifted his back up against the wall so he could shake. I'm Ryan, and that's Paul. He nodded across the table, but Paul was too engrossed in Nicole's cleavage, which was spilling out of her dress, to even look up. So, do you go to school here? She was obviously as uncomfortable striking up a conversation with a stranger as Ryan was, so he tried to save her by being more social than he felt. Yeah, I'm a junior. You? He'd never seen her before, but he didn't pay much attention to the co-eds. He told himself he didn't look because he had Brooke, but in the 4 weeks of being single, he realized he still hadn't looked much. No, I'm visiting my cousin. He lives nearby, and I've been thinking of moving to the area, so I've been staying with him for a while to look for a job. She seemed nice and wasn't as conceited as he was used to from Pretty Blonde. So can I buy you a drink? You look like you're about ready for a refill. Sure, you can refill my refill. She looked a little more confident as she let her eyes roam his body. His upper body was fully facing her, so she could see what he felt built. What she could see he was well built. Sorry about that. He appeared to work out a lot. I told you it was on the cusp, okay? He had large biceps under the sleeves of his t-shirt, but it fit loosely, so he wasn't trying to impress her with his pecs. Chapter 2. They talked and drank for another hour before they noticed that Nicole and Paul had never come back from their last trip to the bar. Maybe I should go check on them, Ryan said, scooting toward Dre as if he wanted to get out of the booth. She looked at him like he had grown two heads. What? You're serious? She seemed stunned that he would even suggest such a thing. Is your friend an axe murderer or something? What? No. I just mean they've been gone for a while. Want to make sure he's fine. I'm his ride, so if he's ready to go, I need to find him. This time she laughed out loud. Trust me, they're fine. And how do you know? They're probably doing it in the bathroom or something. Don't worry about them. I don't think she'll hurt him too badly. She laughed as she said it, but Ryan got the feeling there was something she wasn't telling him. Speaking of, I need to use the loo. I'll be right back. While she was gone, Ryan quickly sent a text to Paul to tell him he was ready to leave. Drea was really sweet and very pretty, but he didn't feel an attraction to her. Just as he returned from the restroom, Ryan got a reply text from Paul. Nicole will take me to my car. Have fun, stud. Oh, I guess Nicole is gonna drive Paul home, so I probably should get going. I need to get up early tomorrow. It was really great to meet you. Can I get you anything else before I leave? He was suddenly anxious to get out of there. He just wanted to go to bed and wallow for another few weeks or months, maybe trying the single thing again. God, that's so typical. I came with her and now she's ditching me. Again, I don't know why I ever let her drive. She dug into her purse looking for her phone. After trying 3 times to reach Nicole, she gave up and looked over at Ryan. Oh, yeah, of course. I'll give you a lift. Let's go. Over the course of a few hours, he'd only had a few beers, so he felt pretty comfortable driving. But as soon as they left the bar, a police cruiser pulled out behind him and followed at fairly close distance. Damn, I cannot get stopped. How far is your place? He was trying to sober up by rolling down the windows and crunching breath mints. He had never watched his speedometer so intently in his life. Just a few blocks away. You'll be fine. Just don't run a red light, and you're good. She didn't seem worried, but it wasn't her license or her job on the line. Ryan worked as a parts runner for a local electronics store and would be fired if he got a DUI. That building on the left, just pull in behind the red car and come in for a few minutes. I'll make you some coffee. He really just wanted to go home, but couldn't take the chance of the cop waiting for him, so he parked the car and followed her into the 2-story building. When they got to the top of the stairs, Drea reached up to feel around on the door frame and produced a single key. You weren't supposed to see that, she smiled at Ryan as she unlocked the door. They walked into the dark room that was lit by an enormous flat screen taking up half the far wall. In the glow of the video game, he saw the bar back of a guy wearing a headset and pounded a game controller. That's my cousin Zach. He's doing some video game tournament or something. She walked in front of the TV to get his attention. Zach, this is Ryan. He's going to hang out for a few and sober up. Ryan nodded at the guy wearing nothing but a pair of pink and black Bermudas. Hey, make yourself comfortable. Zach barely looked away from the screen, but he seemed friendly enough. So you want me to make you a cup of coffee or something? Drea asked. Ryan glanced at his phone and was surprised to see it was after 1 in the morning. He had a class at 9 and knew there was no way he'd get any sleep at all if he had any coffee. Thanks, but I should probably get going. I'm sure that cop is gone by now. He walked to the window that faced the street and saw the cruiser parked about a half a block away with only parking lights on. Damn, that jerk is actually waiting for me. He looked around the room, evaluating his options. He lived about 4 miles away, so he could walk home, but then he'd have to walk back the next morning to pick up his car. Probably not worth the effort. You're welcome to stay here tonight. The sofa's really comfy. Ryan took another look at the sofa. It was huge, U-shaped leather sectional that Zach was perched on one end of. It actually did look pretty comfortable. I guess I can hang for a bit. Maybe we'll get a call soon and take off. He'll, referring to the police officer, just in case you got missed that, because I'm sorry about that. Ryan went to the far end of the couch and took a seat. Drea walked back from the hallway with a pillow and a few blankets. Here you go, just in case she doze off. Zach could go for hours, so hopefully the light won't bother you too much. No problem, thanks. I really appreciate it. Ryan was not the type of guy to make himself comfortable in a stranger's home, but he was too tired and too pissed off at Paul for ditching him to care about manners. He leaned back into the corner and settled in with the blanket. Drea said goodnight and went to bed. Apparently, she felt the lack of chemistry just as strongly as Ryan did. He tried to close his eyes, but the light from the fast-paced video game was really distracting. He glanced at Zach and realized he had been watching Ryan curl up in the blanket. Zach quickly looked away and went back to his game. Ryan had never really been into video games. He played at the occasional arcade growing up, but had always been more into riding his bike or playing sports with his friends to get really into gaming. He studied the screen for a few minutes, trying to understand what the purpose of it was. You play? The question brought Ryan back to the present. Oh, nah. Looks interesting, but I haven't played myself. I'd like you to take a turn, but I've got 500 on this round, so I need to stay focused. Don't let me distract you. He was feeling pretty tired and wanted to sleep, but he was fascinated that grown men could spend hours of their lives playing these games. He looked at Zach and caught him staring again. They locked gazes, and Ryan waited for Zach to tell him something else about the game, but he didn't. He just stared, like he was confused about something. How do you know Drea? Zach finally asked. We just met tonight. My buddy took off with her friend, so I gave her a ride home. She seems cool. Are you into her? He seemed focused on his game, but he glanced back to Ryan to see his response. Well, I just got out of a long relationship. I'm not really ready to get into another one yet. Still trying to figure out what I want, I guess. Is Drea your type? He emphasized type as if he was trying to ask something more. Ryan didn't want to offend him by saying he didn't feel anything for his cousin, so he tried to play it off. I guess so. I'm not sure we're right for each other, and since she doesn't live around here, it's probably not meant to be. He got out and checked the window again to see if the cruiser was still parked. The bastard was still there. Was there so little crime in this town that he could wait there all night? Looks like I might be stuck here for a while. Are you sure you don't mind me staying? No problem. Do you need anything else? I'm good here. I'm so tired, I'd probably just pass out. Chapter 3. Ryan did pass out. He probably only slept for a few hours when the sun started to filter into the room and he cracked an eyelid. He saw a wall of brown in front of his face and was startled by an unfamiliar view. He sat up quickly and leaned back, away from the cushions of the couch just as he realized where he was and what was happening, and he landed on the floor with a great thud. Fortunately or unfortunately, his tailbone took the brunt of the fall and his head barely touched the ground. Ah! The sound of muffled laughter reminded him that he was in a stranger's home. He looked toward the sound and saw Zach holding back his laughter while trying to keep his attention on the game. You all right? That sounded like it hurt. I'm fine. You're still playing? What time is it? Ryan only planned to sleep for an hour or two, but he must have slept through the night. He was digging around for his phone. Up, kitty, 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 kitty. Thank you, Jack Jack. Shoot, it's 8. I gotta go. I can't be late again. He jumped up and slipped on his shoes. He didn't even stop to go to the bathroom. Hey, can I tell Drea I said thanks? I don't want to wake her up, and I really gotta go. You should probably tell her herself. Just give her a call. Call later. I don't have her number, but you can just give her my number and ask her to text me. There is no space behind me, but you are more than welcome to get my number. He scribbled his name and number on the back of the receipt he found on the breakfast bar. Ryan ran out of the building into his car like his life depended on it. When he got to his apartment, he quickly changed into a clean shirt, put on some deodorant, and grabbed his laptop. He hated physics. He really needed to stay on the professor's good side if he had any hope of passing the class. When Ryan showed up to work the next afternoon, he got the long version of what happened between Paul and Nicole. Apparently, they had both had black labs named Duke, and that was some kind of sign from God that they should hook up. Ryan was pretty shocked that Paul would do something like that when he claimed to love Allie so much, but he wasn't one to judge. He just wanted to live his life and let other people live theirs. So tell me about Drea. If she's anything like her friend, I'm surprised you're not still limping. Ryan knew Paul wouldn't let him get away without details. There isn't much to tell. We hung out for a while, and I gave her a ride home since her friend ditched her, and then I spent the night. Obviously, Paul would think they slept together, but he figured it was an innocent lie. He'd probably never see her again, so it didn't really matter what Paul thought, and if he got Paul back into dating, then it was worth it. I knew you had it in you, man. I have to say, almost a little teary. He pretended to wipe fake tears off his cheeks. The caterpillar was turned into a butterfly. The grasshopper's become the master. Okay, master. Don't let your head pop over there. I have done this before, you know. I've had lots of girlfriends. Yes, but a one-night stand is much different than a girlfriend. It's when a boy becomes a man. You, my friend, are finally a man. Paul was laughing, but Ryan knew there was some truth to the theory. Maybe he really did just need a random hookup to get Brooke out of his system and move on. It's funny how when you actually want a one-night stand, there aren't any available. He considered Drea a possibility. She was really pretty and really nice. Maybe that was all he needed. If she was willing, he could screw her and forget her. Seemed simple enough, except for the fact that she never called him. Just as he was starting to feel depressed about the rejection of the girl he drove home, he got a text from her. Got a job, party tonight at 9, come, Drea. As he was typing out a thanks for the invite, but I can't make it response, he remembered his recent decision to look for a flame. Maybe it wouldn't be Drea, but there would probably be lots of hot chicks at her party. He responded with a promise to come by for a while. When he left work at 7, he debated whether or not to tell Paul about the party. He assumed Nicole would be there, but reasoned that if she wanted to see him, she'd have invited him herself. So Ryan kept his mouth shut and went straight home to get ready. He was oddly excited to be going back to Drea's. He still couldn't conjure up any serious feelings for her, but was really anxious to see her again. It didn't make any sense. Chapter 4. When he got to the apartment, the door propped open, and there was at least 25 people crammed into the great room. The music was blaring, and everyone had a drink in their hand. So Ryan casually walked towards the breakfast bar to check out the selection of liquor. He didn't want to worry about driving home, so he had taken a cab. Figured it was worth the cash to not have to crash on the couch if he didn't find anyone to hook up with. Feeling liberated but not needing to drive, he poured a double shot of Jack and added a splash of Coke. He had just swallowed a mouthful when he felt someone nudge his arm from behind. Hey, you made it. When Ryan turned around, he saw Zach standing up and fully dressed. He almost didn't recognize him in his half-naked video game zombie from the other night. Hey, Zach, yeah, I figured I'd stop by for a bit. Where's Drea? Zach flinched slightly at the question, but quickly recovered his friendly smile and motioned to the other side of the room. I think she's talking to a few people by the TV. I'm sure she'll be happy to see you. Ryan excused himself and wandered toward the TV. There was a crowd of people hunched over the coffee table, and when he got closer, he saw they were playing guitars with tequila. Playing quarters. Goodness. Ryan had a love-hate relationship with tequila. He loved it until he went to Cabo for spring break his freshman year and has hated it ever since. He kneeled down beside Dre and quickly congratulated on her job. He wanted to make sure she got credit for showing up. He just in case he didn't see her again for the rest of the night. But by the way, she was already slurring her words at 10 o'clock. He was pretty confident she wouldn't remember by morning. He made a quick pass over the appetizer table, then settled on the sofa next to the group of people that he recognized from school. They immediately brought him into their conversation, and he learned they were all Zach's friends. Apparently, Zach was a grad student that taught several engineering classes they were in. Ryan didn't have any kind of programming classes, which explains why he'd never seen Zach on campus. Ryan was studying business so he could open up an automotive fabrication shop one day. He loved all things car related and wanted to do something useful with his passion. When Zach finally came by to see his friends, he seemed happy that Ryan was among them. He offered to get everyone another drink. When he returned with Ryan's fourth drink of the night, Zach sat down on the corner of the table closest to him. Zach leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and listened to the conversations around him. So how's it going? He asked Ryan. Good, thanks. How about you? Did you win that tourney? No, I made it to the semifinals, but I was a bit distracted towards the end, so I bailed. I do these things like once a month, so it's no big deal. Shoot, I know you had some cash riding on it. I hope I wasn't one of the distractions. I didn't plan to be there all night. Oh no, you're fine. I'm sorry I wasn't more social, but I had a lot on my mind. Zach seemed to be bothered by something, but didn't elaborate, so Ryan let it go. They got into a conversation about school. Zach knew many of the professors Ryan had and told some hilarious stories about his time in their classes. Zach was really smart and double majored in business and electric engineering. Ryan was happy to learn they had some things in common, both being interested in cars and having grown up in similar small towns. When people started to file out of the apartment, Zach asked Ryan if he wanted to learn how to play Halo. Ryan was just drunk enough that playing video games in the middle of the night sounded like a great idea. After about an hour of really sucking at it, he finally started to get some coordination between what his brain told him to do and what his hands needed to do. Zach teased him relentlessly, but it was a lot of fun. By 2, Ryan was feeling the whiskey and starting to fade. Damn, I didn't realize it was so late. I better call a cab. He stood up to stretch and realized how badly his head was pounding. He was not going to be a happy camper in the morning. You can stay the night if you want. Drea has some guy in there with her, but if you don't mind the couch again, I'll grab some blankets. Ryan was feeling a bit embarrassed about this new trend of having to stay over. He'd never been the type of guy to get drunk and pass out on someone's house, but couch was really comfortable and he didn't actually feel like waiting for a cab and dragging himself home. If you don't mind, that sounds awesome. Zach gave him the same blankets he'd used before and told him where to find bottled water and Tylenol. Ryan slipped out of his jeans and quickly passed out in the same corner of the sofa he did previously. He woke up the next morning with morning wood that he had to ignore. He must have been hot during the night because the blankets were in a heap on the floor and he was flat on his back with his hand on his thigh. When he realized where he was, he rolled into the back of the couch with a moan to wait out his wood. He really needed to take a piss. Morning, sunshine, Zach said from over the top of the couch. Ryan opened one eye and saw an annoyingly cheery face staring down at him. He grunted and closed his eyes again. Zach laughed as he walked into the kitchen. You feeling as good as you look? He asked over the sound of running water. I'm going to make some breakfast, maybe some fried eggs, or do you prefer sunny side up? Oh, and some greasy bacon? Maybe a glass of warm milk to soothe your tummy. Shut the hell up, or you'll see what's in my tummy all over your fancy leather couch. Touchy, touchy. I'm trying to be a good host. I want to make sure you're well taken care of while you're a guest at Chateau Bauer. Zach laughed again, maybe just a few Tylenol and some water. Ryan nodded, then quickly regretted it. Thanks. Ryan hadn't had a hangover like that in years, probably since his first year in college when he was too stupid to say when. Apparently, some things never change. He took the Tylenol and managed to sit up once his lap was under control. He slipped into his jeans and headed to the bathroom slowly. He wanted to take a shower, but didn't want to make himself too comfortable, so he just rinsed with mouthwash that he found under the sink and washed his face. Running his wet hands through his hair helped tame the waves that were in need of a haircut. Grooming was the first thing to go when you were no longer in a relationship. He would have grown a full beard by then if he could get past the constant itchiness. When he returned to the living room, he found a spread of fresh fruit and bagels on a tray. He was suddenly hungry and the bagels smelled delicious. He grabbed a cheesy bagel from the tray and gave Zach a questioning look. I went out and picked them up this morning. I had a carb craving and figured it might not be too hard on you or Dre if you were feeling like crap, which I have to assume you are. Yeah, I don't even remember drinking that much, although I guess I wasn't really using much Coke in my Jack and Coke, so maybe that's where it all went south. Yeah, I think I counted at least 8, so I figured you'd feel it today. Zach was flipping through a stack of mail and picking at Ebola grapes. A few of my buddies and I were meeting up later to play disc golf over at Washington Park. Are you interested? Sure, I've only played a few times and I wasn't very good at it, but it sounds like fun. All right. We'll be there around 4. I've got to head out for a bit, but I'll see you later. They exchanged phone numbers as Zach was walking out the door so they could get in touch in case the plans changed. See ya, and thanks for letting me stay over again. Ryan was feeling a little weird about being left in the apartment when the owner just walked out, so he quickly gathered his stuff and followed behind Zach, locking the door from the inside as he went. When he got home, Ryan did some housework that he'd been neglecting and hopped on the internet to research disc golf. When he said he'd played it before, that was a bit of an exaggeration. He'd actually only played the Wii version of it with Brooks' little brother. It seemed simple enough, an electronic controller, so he thought he could pick it. And as long as he knew the basic rules, he figured he could wing it. Chapter 5, without phone calls. When he got to the park at 3:45, Zach was already there with a group of 4 other guys. He recognized them from the party, and they were all really cool. They divided into 3 teams with Zach and Ryan on one team together. They went last, so Ryan was able to study how each person stood and released the disc. By the time it was his turn, Ryan was able to get a pretty decent throw in and wasn't the furthest from the basket. He was confident his story of having played a few times would not be questioned. Zach, on the other hand, was practically a professional. He was the best player out there by far and kept their team from having to buy dinner for everyone else that night. They needed they headed to a local brewery and grill that Ryan went to often. It was a regular hangout for the students and had the best burgers in town. Their microbrews were also pretty good, but Ryan wasn't up for drinking, so he stuck to Coke with his dinner. He got along really well with everyone and agreed to join their weekly games. He wasn't sure that Zach would want him on his team going forward, but the other guys seemed more interested in having fun than competing, so he was excited to do it again. When they were waiting for the server to return with the credit card slip, a woman stopped by the table and started hanging on Zach. She was a pretty brunette with surgically enhanced tits that were shoved into a white tank top that was begging to be sprayed with a hose. She was trashier than Ryan would have expected from Zach, but he barely knew the guy, so really had no idea what he was into. Everybody has a type. When the semi-drunk woman finally removed herself from Zach's lap and wandered back to her own table, Ryan nudged Zach with his shoulder and said, "Ex-girlfriend?" Zach almost spit out the last of his drink on the table. What? Oh, no. Well, she seemed pretty into you. Maybe a future girlfriend. Probably not, since I'm gay. Zach stared hard at Ryan, waiting for reaction. Ryan seemed a little stunned at first, and then he stared back at Zach as if looking for visual clues. His hair seemed straight. His clothes were fashionable, but still masculine. Masculine. Ugh. He liked video games and sports. Ryan couldn't pinpoint any clues that would point to Zach being gay. Well, at least according to his somewhat ignorant expectations of what gay guys were like. Ryan didn't know many openly gay guys growing up, and when he got to college, the gays were so flamboyant that they were pretty easy to recognize. Nothing like Zach. Zach was very much like Ryan, and it wasn't adding up to him. Seriously? Huh, I wouldn't have guessed that. Do you have a problem with it? Zach's tone had a hard edge to it, and the other guys at the table went silent, watching the conversation play out. No, not at all. I'm just surprised. You seem to be like me, so I assume you were straight. But it doesn't matter to me either way, I guess. Ryan tried to play it cool, but he wasn't sure if smiling too broadly would seem insincere or like an invitation. He mostly just looked down at his napkin and fidgeted with it. Finally, one of the guys took pity on him and cleared his throat. Well, we're all settled up, so I'm going to head out. Marcy is waiting for me to watch Survivor with her. Joe, the throat clearer, said. Everyone stood up and said their goodbyes. While walking to their cars, Zach was silent. Ryan felt like he was getting the cold shoulder, but honestly didn't know what the reason was. He wanted to find a way to smooth things over with Zach because he genuinely liked the guy. He was fun to be around and funny to talk to, and he was a damn good disc golfer. So next week, same time, same place? Ryan asked as he got to the door of the car. Zach was parked across them, so they were facing each other. Yeah, whatever. If you can't make it, just let me know so I can get a replacement. Zach seemed almost sad when he said it. Ryan wanted to make it clear to Zach that being gay wasn't a deal breaker as far as their relationship. I'll be there. I had a great time today, and if I'm going to learn, I want to learn from the best, he said with too much enthusiasm. This got Zach to look at him to try to gauge what he really meant. I figured you knew. Dre usually introduces me as her gay cousin, so I never thought to bring it up. I'm sorry if you think I was hiding it from you. I wasn't. I don't hide who I am. Zach spit that last part out as if accusing Ryan of something that he didn't understand. Dude, it's cool. I swear. I don't care. We can be friends, gay or not. It doesn't matter to me. Ryan was thinking that maybe it did matter a little, and it would definitely taint some of the things they did together, but not enough that he didn't want to hang out with him. Hey, I was going to ask if you might have time this week to tutor me. I have a huge test coming up, and I'm having some trouble with Hinkle's Econ class. You probably took it, so I thought maybe you could help me study or something, if you have time. Ah, yeah, sure. How's Tuesday? I'll be home by 6:30, so anytime after that is fine. I think Drea will be back home packing, so my place will be quiet for study. Zach's attitude took a 180-degree detour. He went from being pissed off and slightly rejected to looking excited. Cool, I'll come by after work, probably around 7, but if that's okay. Do you want me to bring a pizza or something? I'm usually starving by then. No, I like to cook, so I'll make something. Ryan got home in a better mood than usual. He felt like he was getting back into a normal groove of hanging out with friends and having fun after a month of sulking about Brooke. He contemplated Zach's sexuality for a bit, wondering if he was giving him the wrong idea about their friendship. But Zach was the same guy prior to his admission as he was after it, so Ryan felt confident they could have a normal guy relationship. Ryan had female friends that he wasn't sexually attracted to, but liked to hang out with. Although after giving it a bit of thought, Ryan realized that he would have slept with any one of those girlfriends if they showed the slightest bit of interest, especially since he was several months into a celibacy streak that was starting to get really old really fast. Chapter 6. When Tuesday afternoon rolled around, Ryan felt more anxious than he should have. He actually changed into a nice pair of jeans and then he would normally wear, just because he was suddenly self-conscious about whether Zach would be judging his clothes. He knew it was an ignorant stereotype that all gay guys were fashion divas, but he still wanted to prove that he was cool with their friendship. Ryan arrived at 7:15 with a six-pack and his schoolwork. He had printed out most of the notes he'd taken during the microeconomics class that he was at risk of failing. He understood the basics of the business cycle, but once he tried to wrap his brain around long-run economic growth of a nation, he lost it. He was seriously considering dropping the class and figured this test would determine whether he stuck it out and hoped for a C or dropped it and tried again next semester. Zach was in the kitchen and yelled for him to come in after Ryan rang the bell. Ryan ducked his head in and was overcome by the aromas wafting in the kitchen. He put the six-pack on the breakfast bar and plopped the top of a beer bottle, tipping it toward Zach from the opposite side of the counter. You like pallet wrecker? Ryan asked. Pallet what? Pallet wrecker. It's an IPA. It's good. Seriously? I'm slaving over a hot stove and you show up with something called pallet wrecker? Should I stop now? Zach lifted his hands from the knife he was chopping almonds with and stared at Ryan. Ryan's face went pale. Damn. He was trying to be cool about the night and apparently offended his host by bringing a beer that would ruin the meal. Geez, I'm sorry. I didn't even think about that. I didn't mean to. Zach started laughing. I'm just messing with you, dude. He reached over and grabbed the open bottle from Ryan's hand. I've had this before. My ex used to drink it. It'll go well with what I'm making. Ryan exhaled loudly, relieved that he hadn't already ruined the night. What are we having? It smells really good. The rich aromas were making Ryan's stomach growl, but he didn't want to be rude. I hope you like Indian food because this is one of my favorite dishes. It's chicken korma and rice. Not too spicy, but it does have a bit of a kick. But you seem like you can handle a little heat, right? Zach peeked up at Ryan with a smirk. Was he flirting? Ryan grabbed a beer for himself and took a long drag. Yeah, that sounds great. I like spicy food. Max is always dieting, so we never ate good food. And I'm starving, so I'm pretty sure anything will be good. He felt the flutter in his belly. He assumed it was discomfort from possibly being flirted with by a guy, not because he was actually flattered by it. Let me just get cleaned up in here, and then we can start with your work. This only needs another 30 minutes or so, and then we can eat. You can spread out your stuff on the coffee table, and I'll be right over. Ryan took his bag to the sofa and began to unload. He set up his laptop and spread out the notes and sample tests he'd been working on. Since the tests were mostly essay, he wasn't sure if he was describing all of his theories and policies correctly. When Zach joined him a few minutes later, they dove into Ryan's examples. Zach was actually a really great tutor. He was patient and didn't make Ryan feel stupid for not understanding the concept. He knew exactly what Hinkle was looking for, and within 15 minutes of talking, Ryan felt like he was actually starting to understand it. It was almost interesting when Zach described it. The ding of the timer signaled that dinner was ready, so both guys went into the kitchen to get food. Zach asked if Ryan to take a warming dish with naan bread and a bowl of white rice to the table while he plated the chicken. The meal was delicious, and the beer Ryan brought actually did complement the spicy chicken and the yogurty sauce really well. So tell me about your ex, Zach said about halfway through the meal. I don't know how interesting that story is. Brooke was my girlfriend in high school. She left to go to school on the coast, so we've been doing the long distance things for a few years. It was fine at first, but she's really high maintenance, and I think I got over it. She definitely got over me not being her at her beck and call, so we broke up about a month ago. So have you just been hooking up, or are you interested in anyone? Doesn't seem like there was much with Dre. Dre's really nice and pretty, but no, I don't think I'm ready to really move on yet. I'm kind of in a rut, I think. I'm not sure what I want. I'm almost feeling like I don't want anyone right now. Like maybe I should be single for a while and just see what happens. He looked at his own reflection in the window, thinking about whether that was actually true or not. Zach looked thoughtful, but didn't say anything else. When Ryan looked at him to get the rest of his response, he realized that Zach was staring at him. He locked his gaze with Zach's, and they both seemed to be looking for answers that Ryan didn't believe were there. After the moment went from friendly and curious to intimate and invasive, Ryan broke the stare and looked back at his plate. So what about you? You mentioned an ex. What happened there? With Steve? Well, we were together for about a year. Then his dad got sick and moved back home. So he moved back home to help take care of him. We knew the long distance thing wouldn't work for us, and I didn't really want to drag it out any longer, so we broke it up. That was 2 years ago, so I really should be much further into the moving on process by now, but I guess I was kind of in the same boat, trying to decide what I want. So have you figured it out? Ryan asked. Figured what out? What you want? You said you were in the same boat. Does that mean you know what you want? Yeah, I think I do. Just don't know if what I want matters that much. I might be out of luck on this one, he said wistfully. What do you mean? Of course it matters. Ryan was getting that feeling in his belly again. He felt like they were talking about something deeper that his body was registering, but his mind wasn't, or at least his mind wasn't allowing him to fully understand yet. I mean that just because I want something doesn't mean I'm going to get it, right? He had an intense look on his face when he leaned forward and rested his chin on his fist. Ryan was getting more certain that that conversation was about him, and he had to keep himself from bolting out of the apartment. Yeah, but that was a part of him that wanted to find out for sure. If Zach was interested in Ryan in more than a friendly way, he needed to know it sooner rather than later. And it would be flattering and kind of cool to be the object of someone's desires, but it didn't swing that way. So they needed to get it out in the open. Are you saying there's a guy you're interested in that you don't think is into you? He couldn't have put it any more obvious if he tried. Ryan wasn't as good at being subtle as he was at being dense. He might as well have just said, "Hey, buddy, do you want me?" That's exactly what I'm saying. Zach watched every move Ryan made. When Ryan reached for his beer, Zach's eyes tracked the bottle until it reached Ryan's lips. When Ryan closed his lips around the rim to take a swig, he heard a soft groan come from across the table. He looked over at Zach and noticed a faint blush color in his features, but neither guy looked away. Well, all I can say is, if there is something you want, you should at least ask for it. You never know what the answer might be. What? What did that mean? Ryan immediately regretted this game he was playing. He was basically telling his new gay friend to proposition him if he wanted to, but Ryan didn't actually intend to do anything with him. Well, probably not. He did have a few moments in that shower that morning when he wondered what it would be like to be with a guy. Would it be good? Would a guy still feel soft? Or would he be constantly reminded of the fact that it wasn't the chick? He was surprised that he was happier at the end when he was thinking about Zach than he had in years while thinking about Brooke or any other women. But that didn't mean Ryan was into guys. He figured it was just that he had been sexually comatose for so long. His body was ready for action, any action. Well, maybe any action. He was still on the fence about that. Have you ever been with a man? Whoa, way to just go for it. Ryan almost choked on his beer, but he managed to keep it in his mouth. No, I guess I never really thought about it. I mean, I'm not gay or anything, so I haven't really, well, How do you know if you've never tried it? Tried what? Being with a man? Yeah. I'm not trying to pressure you anything you don't want to do, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't want you since the moment Dre dragged you in here last week. Ryan was stunned at this confession. He couldn't believe that he was actually being asked to be with a guy and was considering it. Really? I mean, you were playing your game and I was some weird dude hiding from the police on your couch. Not exactly someone that screams, "Good lay," or whatever it is you scream. He chuckled to try to diffuse his own tension, but it didn't work. Zach wasn't letting him off the hook that easily. Honestly, I thought you were adorable. It was cute that you were so worried about staying over when you didn't follow Dre to her room. I was pretty surprised. She has a lot of guy friends, and none of them have ever slept on the sofa. He was less intense now, and they were back to being a couple of guys just having a conversation over dinner. Well, over what used to be dinner, since they were finished with their food but didn't want to give up yet. I don't think I've been called adorable before, and definitely not by a guy. Ryan was relaxing a bit. He didn't know how serious Zach was, but he was open-minded enough to keep the topic going. It shouldn't matter who says it, girl or guy. You've got boy next door thing going for you. That's kind of hot. You're different from most of the guys I've gone out with, but there's something that really draws me to you. He seemed so sincere. His voice was practically a whisper, but Ryan knew what he meant. He was feeling the same thing. He didn't think it was a sexual attraction, but he was drawn to Zach and wanted to be around it. Could it mean something more? I don't want to lead you on. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing here, but I think it's only fair to repeat that I'm not gay. I really like hanging out with you, and I think I understand the attraction you're talking about, but I didn't come here for anything more than just to hang out. I hope that's okay. I'm not going to push you, but I think you're lying to yourself. Zach got up from the table and grabbed the last two beers from the fridge. He motioned for Ryan to follow him to the couch. Ryan was nervous, but still curious enough to follow him. They went to the opposite side of the couch from where they were studying earlier, each taking a side of a corner so there were at least enough space between them for a third person to sit. Ryan felt that was a safe distance to not be tempting, but not be rude either. What makes you think I'm lying? He tried to keep the defensive edge out of his voice without sounding whiny. His brain was telling him to just pack up and get out of there. He didn't need a tutor that badly, but the rest of him wanted to play it out and see what Zach was actually suggesting. Maybe he was just looking for a buddy, too, and this was his way of separating the friends from the lovers. Ryan really had no idea what was going on. I think that if you were really against it, you would have left a long time ago, or that you wouldn't have shown up for dinner at all. He was speaking quietly and calmly while Brian fidgeted with his bottle. Zach scooted a few inches closer to the inside corner of the sectional, and his left knee slightly grazed Ryan's right knee. Ryan's head popped up, and he got caught in Zach's stare again. And I think that if you wanted me to make a move, you know that I want to touch you, and you're just debating how far you'll let me go before your head takes over, Zach said in a husky voice. No, that's not. His protest was cut short when Zach slid to the floor and scooted in between Ryan's spread knees. With Ryan sitting on the low sofa and Zach kneeling in front of him, they were almost at eye level with each other. Zach put both hands on the outside of Ryan's thighs and just rested there. He didn't want to move too suddenly because he knew that Ryan was on a very narrow fence and was weaving in both directions. Don't think so much. Just do what comes instinctively. If you really want me to stop, tell me. I promise I will. Ryan couldn't form the words to respond. He barely nodded his head up once when Zach moved in for a kiss. It was just a light graze across his lips, but it lit him up from his belly outward. His brain sifted through a million things he should be saying and doing, but he just stared at Zach's eyes. Finally catching his breath, he closed his eyes for a moment, and Zach came in again. This time he held the pressure against Ryan's lips for a few seconds before tracing his tongue along Ryan's lower lip, asking for permission to enter. Ryan was going on instinct and let his lips part just enough to accept Zach's hot tongue. They quickly fell into a rhythm that felt completely natural to Ryan. Zach was kneading Ryan's thighs and creating an almost electric sensation through his lower body. Ryan lifted one palm to the back of Zach's neck, drawing him closer. He was fully invested at that point and wanted to try it all. He let his other hand snake around Zach's waist. Ryan's fingers found the edge of his shirt and brushed soft skin beneath. Zach's body startled at the contact, and he moaned into Ryan's mouth. When he realized that the touch was intentional and deliberate, Ryan wanted to feel him too. Zach pulled back enough to yank his shirt over his head and helped relieve Ryan of his too. Without taking their eyes off each other, Zach climbed up the couch and straddled Ryan. He was more turned on by kissing Zach than he'd been in years. Maybe in his whole life, Ryan didn't care why it was happening or what it meant. He just wanted more. Zach gently guided Ryan to lie down on the seat cushion. In that vulnerable position, Ryan looked like a lost kid who needed to be found. Zach was still straddling Ryan's hips and could feel him pressing against it. He pressed down into it as he leaned forward to kiss Ryan's neck. Zach's tongue traced lazy circles across his clavicle, then down the center of his chest. Ryan whimpered below him and pushed himself against Zach's thigh, trying to create as much friction as he could in that position. But Zach was taking his time. He wanted the experience to be perfect for Ryan. He wanted Ryan to love what he did to him so much they had no choice but to come back for more. When Zach's mouth finally found Ryan's left chest, Ryan was able to break his silence. Good. God, that feels good. Not yet. Why not? I wanted to do this. His heart was racing as much from the fear of what he was about to do as the excitement of it. He never thought he'd like the feel of a man's mouth on his, but it was almost smoother than a woman's. Zach had a muscular back and stomach, but the firmness didn't deter from the moment. It made Ryan even more excited. He was sure that he'd embraced himself if they kept it up. Just when he thought he was going to have to beg, Zach slipped one hand inside the top of Ryan's jeans. Ryan wanted to rip his clothes off and just do whatever they were going to do, but Zach was in control and setting the pace, the excruciating, slow, but pleasurable pace. Moment, Zach undressed and just stood there. Was Ryan supposed to say something? Compliment his girth, perhaps? Ryan felt stupid for not having enough game to know proper seeing you naked for the first time etiquette, so he just winged it. You work out? Zach threw his head back and laughed out loud, relaxing his stance just a bit. Ryan wanted to die of humiliation, but it was too late to take it back. Yes, but that's not what I'm waiting for, he said with a smile that showed off a dimple in his left cheek. Are you planning to keep those things on forever? Zach gestured to Ryan's jeans. Duh. Oh, yeah, of course. Having a moment for his head to clear and his blood pressure to return to normal, Ryan was suddenly self-conscious about what he was doing. He fumbled with his belt and button before he felt Zach lean over him. Zach placed one hand on both of Ryan's to help calm him. Zach trailed feather-like kisses from his ear along his jawbone and to his lips. Just relax. We can stop at any time. Feeling Zach's confident hands on his body helped Ryan's nerves go from terrified to excited. He was mentally back on the man-love train and wanted to enjoy the ride. When his zipper was fully down, Zach stood up and guided Ryan's jeans and boxers all the way down his legs and off his body. Now it was Zach's turn to stop and admire the specimen in front of him. Ryan could feel the blush coloring his whole body. He had never felt so vulnerable. He wasn't used to being looked at like a piece of meat, but there was clear admiration in Zach's eyes. You're so hot, Zach breathed as he climbed back onto the couch and settled over Ryan. As soon as their bodies were fully parallel, Zach took Ryan's lower lip between his teeth and gently nipped at him. Their kisses went from slow and gentle to hot and hurried within seconds. Ryan wanted to take the next step, but he didn't know what that would be. He just wanted to feel closer to Zach in every possible way. Zach sat up and tucked his spread knees underneath Ryan's thighs as far as they could, lying somewhat in an awkward position with leg over the back of the couch and one on the ground. Ryan knew he should be embarrassed, but he wasn't. The tangle of their bodies was captivated by what Zach was doing and how good it felt. Zach glanced up at Ryan's face, looking for any indication that he wanted to stop, and didn't find any. He rested his full weight on Ryan's chest as they both tried to catch their breath. Ryan let his fingers comb through Zach's sweaty brown hair and was struck by how silky it felt. He trailed them down. He trailed them down Zach's back and hesitated only slightly before gently sliding across Zach's backside. You got something else in mind? Zach asked in a sexy voice. He lifted his head up and rested his chin on Ryan's chest, staring into his deep blue eyes. No, well, I don't know, maybe. Normally I don't. Well, usually I'm on top. He peeked up at Ryan and saw his face blanch slightly, but I don't want to hurt you. I don't mean to sound ignorant, but I want to make sure I understand. Do you mean that I could be the pitcher instead of the catcher? He hated that he had to ask. Wasn't something you went into without a clear understanding of what was about to happen. Zach smiled and said, yes, this time, but don't get used to it. He leaned forward and planted a soft, hungry kiss on Ryan's lips. He sucked Ryan's tongue into his mouth and began to get more excited. When they were both at the point of needing more contact, Zach reached around to the other side of the couch and grabbed his jeans. Ryan almost cried out for him not to leave when he realized that he was looking for something in his pocket. Zach pulled out 2 condoms. Do you always? Ryan asked, almost sad to think he was just another conquest. No, I was just hopeful. Ryan looked right into Zach's chocolate brown eyes and slightly nodded. He wanted it this bad. Wow, that was. He didn't have words to describe how that was. I know. Zach was relieved to hear that Ryan enjoyed it as much as they did. Are you okay? I'm amazing. Are you okay? I mean, you're the one. I had an incredible connection with a very attractive guy. I'm the one that got intimate by an extremely sexy guy. Yeah, I'm pretty amazing too. Zach tucked his head into Ryan's neck and inhaled deeply. He smelled so good. The sex and sweat and beer was an aphrodisiac like none other. But didn't it hurt? Yeah, but after I get used to you, I started to feel great. I think the sting helps make it good for both of us. Keeps us focused on each other. I loved it. Ryan thought about what that meant. He couldn't imagine it feeling like anything other than sheer agony, but Zach seemed to enjoy it. They laid in each other's arms for a while until Ryan realized how late it was. Zach asked him to stay, but Ryan needed some space to think about what had just happened. He wasn't gay, but he really liked being with Zach. Was that possible? Once they were dressed, Ryan started to feel shy again and couldn't get out of there fast enough. Thanks for dinner and everything. I had a great time. He couldn't meet Zach's eyes. He wasn't sure if he was happy or sad about how things went. He was really attracted to Zach in a way he'd never been with Brooke, and that was terrifying. Are you sure you're okay? Zach stepped right into Ryan's face and waited for him to make eye contact. Are you having regrets about what we did? Zach looked so vulnerable while he waited for the rejection that he saw coming. He felt a bit guilty for having pushed Ryan further than he might have been ready for. Ryan acted so open-minded that Zach felt like the opportunity was there and could have been lost forever if he didn't take it. Now he was afraid he'd pushed Ryan away in his selfishness. No, it's just late, and I have class tomorrow. I'll call you. Ryan knew what he was saying was a total brush off, and the look on Zach's face said he knew it too. Ryan wasn't gay. This could never be a thing. Chapter 7. All right. The next day was a blur of classrooms and people and mumblings around him, but Ryan wasn't engaged. He was in his head the whole time. He bounced between feelings of disgust for being with a dude to feelings of guilt for feeling disgust that it felt so good, to feelings of need to be with Zach again. He wanted to call him. He wanted to say that maybe he could try it again, just with him, just one more time. He wanted to hold him, and he wanted to taste them. But he couldn't. He knew it would never work. Zach was older and probably looking for something serious, maybe to settle down and adopt kids or something. Ryan was definitely not at that point. He kept his phone turned off for the entire day. I wonder if Zach tried calling or if he was just a challenge that had been met. Either way, Ryan wasn't ready to talk. When he got to work, he dove into the inventory project he'd been avoiding for weeks and tried to stay as far away from Paul as possible. Paul had an uncanny way of knowing when something was really bothering him, and he didn't have any answers to offer. What the hell happened to you? You look like your dog just died. Paul never minced words. Nothing happened to me. I'm fine. He knew he was acting mopey again, but he couldn't help it. He tried to justify it as an annoyance that Zach had ruined their relationship rather than anything else. It would be selfish to hope that Zach had been trying to call him when he knew he was going to ignore him, but he was selfish and he wanted to be wanted, even if he couldn't want back. Well, buck up, buddy, 'cause I'm taking you out tonight. Again? Considering how well the first time went out, Ryan wasn't interested. Thanks, but no thanks. I've got to study and catch up on some errands and wallow in my own misery. But not tonight. It's Mike's birthday and we're going to the kitty club. Bring singles. Maybe watching a bunch of women riding the stainless steel pole on stage would help pull him out of his mood and help him forget about Zach. He needed to remember why he loved women. Fine, but I'm not staying late. I'll drive myself and just stay for an hour or two. Whatever, but wear your good boxers. Maybe you'll get lucky tonight. Paul slapped his shoulder and laughed as he walked into the break room. The next few hours flew by, and Ryan was both excited about going to a strip joint and repulsed by it. He'd been there once before, but it was more pathetic than sexy the last time he went. Those poor girls crawling around on stage, cheesing the guys that lined the catwalk just to earn a few bucks. He realized that the image should have made him interested, but he just went into it. Hopefully the real thing would be more stimulating. After running home to shower and change, Ryan met up with the guys at the club. They had reserved a private table up front so Mike could get some personal attention. Ryan scrounged up a handful of ones, but didn't really need them. He was just there to look, but nothing else, unless he was invited into the VIP room. If that happened, all bets were off. When Candy came on stage, he was ready for her to get him back into a normal frame of mind. But normal for what? Not being into it was more normal for Ryan than anything else. Was that really what he was going for? Back to being uninterested? She was wearing a candy striper uniform and looked like she was barely 18. She had long brown hair that flowed halfway down her back and huge chest. As she unbuttoned the front of her dress, Ryan had to force himself to pay attention. She was gorgeous and sexy and about to be naked, and he wasn't even interested. He kept his eyes on stage so the guys wouldn't think he was a freak, but his mind kept wandering back to Zach. Her hair was the same shade as Zach's. He was willing to bet that her eyes were the same color, too. When she slipped out of her thong and was fully nude, Ryan was looking at her backside and thinking about what it felt like to be inside of Zach's less than 24 hours earlier. He pulled a handful of cash out of his pocket and threw it on the stage in front of Mike. Patting him on the back, he wished him a happy birthday and ran out the door before Paul could stop him. He drove around for about an hour before he found himself parked outside of Zach's building. He was trying to talk himself into going home when there was a knock on the passenger window. Ryan was startled to see Zach leaning down and peeking into the car from the sidewalk. Lost? Zach was carrying a gym bag in one hand and a pizza box in the other. He looked like he'd just come home from a workout. Kinda. The feeling he was wrestling were completely foreign to him. He didn't want to get butterflies when he saw Zach, but he did. And he didn't want to feel the kind of excitement for Zach that he didn't feel for Candy, but he did. Want some pizza? It's sausage lovers. He chuckled at his stupid pun, and Ryan couldn't help but smile. He instantly felt like he was with an old friend when Zach was around. Sure, only because I'm hungry, not because I'm a sausage lover. He tried to sound annoyed, but it was such a ridiculous conversation he didn't have much conviction behind it. Whatever you say. Come on in. The neighbors are going to think you're chasing the joint, and you don't want the Marty to come over. Who's Marty? Ryan asked as he locked up his car and followed Zach into the building. He's the Oh, this is a funny story. Zach had a guilty look, and Ryan knew it had to do with him. Let's hear it. Ryan heard in a tinge of annoyance in his voice in the mention of Marty. Was that jealousy? Ryan was never a jealous type, but maybe he'd just never had anything worthy of evoking those kinds of possessive feelings. He'd have to analyze that in another time. At that moment, Zach had a confession to make. Marty's a cop that lives down the street. He fumbled with his keys and shoved his way into the apartment. A cop on your block. You're talking about the dude that followed me here last week, are you? Hmm, maybe. I didn't actually see where you were looking, but it's possible that was Marty's taking a lunch break. He usually stops at home when he's on duty. Zach glanced at Ryan shyly and gauged his direction. Are you kidding me? Why didn't you tell me? I would have just gone home that night and wouldn't be in the middle of this, whatever this is going on. Ryan's first instinct was to be pissed at being deceived. Why would Drea have set him up if she knew he was fine to drive home? Look, I know I should have said something, but I was curious. You were really cute and nervous, and Drea seemed to think you should stay on the couch, so I let it go. I thought she'd come back to get you after a while, but when she didn't, and then you stayed the whole night, well, I just didn't want you to be mad at me. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. He grabbed a few plates and bottles of water from the fridge and sat next to Ryan at the breakfast bar. And as for whatever this is, I can't help you with that. You need to figure that out on your own, Zach said. I don't know if I can. Ryan put a slice on his plate, but had no appetite. His whole body was in knots, and he couldn't make his big head agree with his little head about what he should do. What? Zach seemed to be lost in his own thoughts when he looked back at Ryan. I don't know if I can figure it out on my own. One minute I know exactly what I want, and then the next I'm thinking that I have to do the opposite. I'm so confused. Ryan buried his face in his hands and took a deep breath. Not only was he embarrassed by his behavior, but he worried about whether Zach would be totally turned off. Taking pity on him, Zach placed his hand on Ryan's shoulders. Tell me what you're feeling. Honestly, I promise to listen as a friend and be as objective as I can be. Zach's smile was reassuring and immediately made Ryan want to open up to him. I feel happy when I think about you. I feel terrified when I think about what that means. I don't want to be gay, but I've never been as attracted to anyone as I am to you. What does that say about me? I feel like a hypocritical jerk. It's not fair for you to be with someone like me, but I don't want to be with anyone else. Just hearing you mention Marty made me want to puke. I've never felt like this before. Ryan bared his soul to Zach and had never felt more exposed. Right or wrong, it was all out there, and there was no turning back. Zach swiveled in his stool so they were both fully facing each other and rested his hand on Ryan's knees. He looked into Ryan's eyes and could see the sincerity there. He had been in Ryan's shoes and knew how scary it would be for him, but he wanted more than anything to make it work. I've never felt this way either. Since you've walked into my apartment, I haven't been able to get you out of my head. I look for you on campus. I think about you when I shower. I dream about you. I want to be with you. And if you want to be with me, even a fraction as much as I do, then I know we can make this work. Don't worry about labels or other people. Just do what feels right. Feel me here with you. Feel us. Without further prompting, Ryan stood up and leaned into Zach. He placed his hands on Zach's chest and slowly moved in for a kiss. His lips closed softly over Zach's, not because he was afraid, but because he wanted to cherish this moment. His tongue swam in Zach's mouth in a way that made him feel sexy. He'd made the decision to be with Zach and wanted to officially consummate that decision. He wasn't even as scared of the pain he knew he would feel. He let his hands roam Zach's chest to the waistband of the basketball shorts he was wearing. Zach's breath caught when Ryan plunged his hand lower. Even though this wasn't their first time together, it felt like it was. Like this was the first time they wanted to be together as a couple instead of as, well, whatever it was they were the last time. Without taking his mouth off Ryan, Zach stood and walked backwards towards his bedroom. If this was going to be their real first time, wasn't going to be on the couch. Zach followed all the way into his room and up against his bed. He fell back, pulling Ryan on top of him, while still slathering his neck and face with kisses. Ryan pulled off just long enough to get his shirt off and step out of his jeans. He grabbed the waist of Zach's shorts and tugged them off, too. I want to do it the other way this time, the way you usually do it, Ryan whispered into Zach's chest as he traced his pecs with his fingers. Zach threaded his fingers into Ryan's hair and gently pulled his head up. I don't want to hurt you. I never want to hurt you. Let's wait a while before we try that. Ryan's heart swelled at the words. Zach spoke with such affection that he knew it was true. He trusted Zach completely and wanted to feel as much pleasure as possible. Ryan needed him to feel as much pleasure as possible. I trust you, and I want you. Now, he growled as he attacked Zach's mouth. Zach could see the change in Ryan and believed him. If you really want this, I'll do it, but you have to promise to tell me if it's too much. I'll hate myself if I hurt you and you don't enjoy it. He stared into Ryan's eyes. Do you promise? I promise, Ryan said with a smile. He was excited and terrified, but mostly determined to prove to Zach that he wanted to be with him completely. Please do it, Ryan begged, staring into Zach's eyes. Ryan could see the admiration that Zach had for him in his eyes. Zach knew how scary and painful the first time was, but Ryan didn't even flinch. He was impressed with his pain threshold and wanted to make sure he was rewarded for his bravery. In a few days, he had become completely enamored with Zach, and now that the physical chemistry was just as real as the emotional, he knew he'd found his new partner. So does this mean you want me to be with me? Like for real? Zach asked tentatively. Zach still wasn't sure Ryan was ready to come out publicly, but he didn't care. He'd keep him tucked in the closet forever, as long as it was his closet. Yes, I want you. I want to do this every day, every night. I've never been more sure of someone in my life. Zach pulled him into a slow and loving kiss. They weren't rushed. They knew they had time to learn more about each other, and they were excited for it. In that moment, they became each other's forever. The end. So, oh my God, that was pretty damn good. Thank you for listening to this censored version of More Than Friends by Aria Grace. For the unabridged audiobook, please visit audiobooksbyaria.com to buy a copy. Next in the series, find out what happens next for Zach and Ryan in Drunk in Love by Aria Grace. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe so you get notifications for the next ones. We will start posting these out as quickly as I can read them out. And leave a comment. Say, that was really cool. That was a lot of fun. We love Jack Jack. Jack Jack was the star. Maybe it'd be nice if you didn't like it. So, because this is an experiment. And certainly if you have requests, leave a request. What favorite Aria Grace book do you want me to hear me read? Thank you again for our very first free reading. And enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good night. Bye.